Maybe get you a bottle of water or something, or?
Oh. There's, no, this is all, whatever. I had to fill it,
There's a shower out there. You need,
but Trader Joe's is there.
okay, whatever.
So that's optimism. You think so, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also the last party in office, so we could wreck the place.
Right on. Well, shit, I didn't know that. I didn't wear that apron. I've been going full Anglo-Saxon mode.
Like, how about shield?
Defense.
Get your morning star.
For us, there's an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the thing.
Okay.
So,
We'll always start softballs for me.
I know, I'm just saying, like, the things that you can't ask about are,
More likely to give you a bow tie than a softball.
a what?
A bow tie.
A bow tie?
Yeah.
What's that?
With an inside high pitch.
Oh, an awful, a bow tie,
That's what they call it.
as it were. Oh. What else do you need to know? You have a house, you have a place to stay forever and ever.
Yeah.
You know, it's awesome. About 6 blocks.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, this should be good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So I know where the place is, and fill her.
You know how to get here.
Yeah.
Doors open. Yep. Okay.
Does not abandon coffee.
Okay. Okay. How's that? Awesome. Good. Yeah. Awesome. I woke up this morning, like yesterday, not awesome. The day before, not awesome. Yeah. Today, it's dissertation day. It's doctor day.
I got your schedule.
I'm ready. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that like, you're gonna throw me in the stars.
Oh, yeah,
It's so awesome.
What a weird thing to call it.
So that's got me set up so that we
we're
can.
all ready for live
Oh my
video.
God, I love
So
that.
any photos watching.
What? Just, you know.
Do you need tape? What do you need for that?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, tape would be good.
I'll get you some
well, I'll have to split them back up.
tape. Have some with us.
Oh, there's tape here. I found it. You're so busy.
Brother, the songs about you. Brother, the songs about you. You're so busy.
You! Hi, come help! I'm good.
You.
Oh, you just saw each other on Tuesday. Hi. I'm gonna hug you.
Oh, yeah,
Get
on
this
the,
shirt and kill me. Dude, it's easier to fly from Oklahoma to drive through my belly. Like, not flying. Our travel was so easy.
Who's coming?
I just wanted us to get a picture of which chapter you mean. Oh, you! I don't know you.
I took off class one week.
You did? You didn't even do that? I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad you're here.
I need to go see, take a test.
Ew. Hurry up.
Wow.
Was Lucy drinking him?
Yes.
You're kidding. She's my favorite.
Yeah,
How is she?
I said, oh, I'm going to Kerri's like the submission defense, and she goes, and like she seemed like she knew your name, so I was like, oh, okay. And she knows like other people.
She's super pregnant.
Oh, no, sorry, that's Lee. I know I have Lee. Gion, there's two Gions.
She's young.
Okay, so sorry, but yeah. Yeah, I had her last quarter. I had a pregnant
She
one last
might
quarter.
be TJ. We could even walk her. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I got her a bunch of baby stuff at the end of the last quarter. But you know, I was gonna have her for ACA this winter.
We went to her wedding and she was your bed. She's in education. Oh, she's just, yeah, ask her. Do you know anything different? She will know it's different. Yeah, we're over here. We don't get to see all of them.
I think she's taking this month off. I think this is when she was pregnant. Her mom, I think, was going to. I don't know if she was pregnant after. She can't be.
What you got to think?
Alright, do you need anything else, Kerri?
No. I need your smiling faces and positive energy.
She got spots.
I think you're wrong.
I think you're right. It's just like she's being lame.
Yeah. And that would be
Okay.
fine. That would be fine.
These are pass keys. We have my car.
How are you? I'm good.
See, you guys keep
I'm
keeping
good today. I'm excited. Good job. Yeah. You're so happy.
We said, I don't need anything about it.
I know, like,
Oh.
we should have done,
Yeah.
I'm going live.
I know, I would probably are doing that. I was gonna.
Yeah, let me just leave this at the space.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, can I sit?
I'm gonna stand. You are? Yeah. Power clicker. I was gonna make people do idea coaching, but I probably should have. Maybe we should have it, maybe, yeah, because the time can get away from me.
The time can really go. Yeah, I feel very closely about that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Also,
You're
I
good, you're
I don't know if we've ever actually met. So.
Really?
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
and this is my friend Forrest. He was speaking about the Cornhusker.
Wow, that's awesome.
He almost grabbed it.
Did you fly in?
No.
He lives here.
Just.
Oh.
I'm gonna really
I'm
so.
so excited. I'm so jazzed.
Yeah.
I was gonna make everyone do idea coaching.
Yeah, I overheard.
I'm regretting it now that I know it's a room full of friends, but it's okay.
No, it's good. It'll translate better with the people over the area.
Yeah.
With just your presentation. They wouldn't be able to do idea coaching.
I have 2 kids doing idea coaching. I'm gonna show them.
Yeah.
So there you go.
How's your life?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It needs you in it, but.
Oh, stop. We're fine. We're gonna get the SEPA, and then we're gonna be totally.
So.
I have them convinced to try to write me and me to help with the auto ethnography piece.
Oh.
So my last month of teaching, I have the kids audio recorders from the practice to see how it goes and try it out. Because there was no instructional strategies for K-12 teachers to try this with young people.
Yeah.
And so it could be big.
Yeah, it would be fun. I'd be interested in that. So.
Well, and giving conversations about healthcare and empower disempowerment. And my kids did a healthcare survey and they asked all the school about issues that matter to them. And so we're gonna look at those and maybe other people. I don't know. I have no idea how it works, but we're gonna do it.
Now, so is she in the cycle or it's coming here, like the words are about to be on?
She thinks they got rejected.
So she's gonna be here the next.
New RFP, yeah.
Other than that.
I have a goal
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, I still have like 20 or 30
This is Mr. Shake It Up. He's a good teacher, but I can't say that during the lunch.
That's a very good class, a long time together.
You did it? You're here? This guy lives in Vermont, everybody.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Well, actually, Boulder. So, yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's kind of slow.
Gee, how was your trip?
It's good. It's good. Yeah, we're good. So,
I have a lot.
How's it going?
Good.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I'm working with I'm gonna see you here. Yeah, so it's still but they got that's worse.
It's worse.
Ours is the king of the hill ringtones that would be a scrap.
How are you? Well, that's, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, some of the fancy people, the ones who go like stocks. I thought this was paperwork. you remember the day that I did? Dude. Dude.
So why are we still?
So we're gonna do like 1, 2, 3, 4.
I will run frames.
Yeah, we were kind of coming up with
Yours is a card. Unfortunately, we'll have to chat. You
should kind of.
I know. Gratitude.
Thanks for the instructions.
Yes.
I didn't bring cash, but you got a great,
Let me get you out of the parking
a lovely validation stickers. Stampy, stampy. Great, thank you. Thank you, right? Oh, you have to show me those things, yes, thank you.
It's okay that I show up to
Is there a place I can grab a glass of water?
Oh my So does that mean some people are leaving Noah?
No.
They're just reading.
We're shifting around and building the optimize a little more.
Kerri, I forgot to have an extra pen. I forgot to bring one. I'm usually so electronic. But I thought, why should I lug all my stuff? Oh, he's got one. Great.
Okay.
It's really hard not to.
We are waiting for one more committee member, so you can keep chatting. Yeah, imagine that. Let me check my You know, I've been here since 1995, so it did take me about 15 years I mean, look, see how adjusted I am? 50 degrees is my flip-flops.
Can you wear your mustache?
Just check. She came out this morning, so she knows.
Monica?
It's not that email from Ms. Dissertation.
I think people may underestimate how long the trek takes. I mean, you have to walk to your building, sit in traffic, brief traffic, but traffic. She'll feel like the bride when she gets here. She'll feel like the bride when she gets here.
Yeah, we're all waiting.
So you have family, you have husband here, your family?
We've been living in Nebraska since October, right? So we spent a lot tonight. I don't know. Half the people in this room is family.
And your tech support as well as husband. Hopefully the baby has good stamina.
Yeah.
So just to let everybody know, we are live on YouTube, and I think she is right. I know it's watching. I think my mom is watching. And so I'm really just grateful for everybody who's tuning in today at any time. So could you just raise your hand if you're in the college red? So you know who you're sitting next to. If you're former college red, awesome. Yeah. If you're let's see, we have some offspring from the college red here. This is wonderful. Faculty here at the table. What else are they gonna ask? Who's been a teacher? Yeah, teachers, great. Well, I'm excited to share work with you when Monica gets here. Are there other things you should know? If you're visiting and you need to get to the restroom, there's a key with a little toy on the end of the table, so take the key with you or you'll get locked out. The restroom's in the hallway.
It's opened with a wedge.
Great. And there's Monica, yay!
Sorry, Kerri.
No
It's all
worries.
good.
Hi, I'm so happy to see you. I'm gonna hug you later.
Okay. Welcome. So welcome everyone. So I'm College Ed. I think everyone. Great to see you. Such a privilege to be part of these kinds of moments. Actually, these culminating transition moments. So the rough format for the morning. Kerri will present an overview of a subset of her dissertation for about 30 to 35 minutes. We'll have whole room Q&A and discussion for a bit and let it run for a while. And then we'll break and we'll ask you to step out while we then confer as a committee, invite Kerri back in, and then sink into the formal defense, closed room defense. We did set up the interior conference room if you want a place to hang out until noon. We'll probably be done before noon. And then we'll transition at that point. So that's the game plan. I was talking with Hank yesterday about defenses in general, and like, Kerri, you're number 21 for me. Like, he said, oh, lucky 21. So, you know, I feel lucky. So some of you may have heard she comes from Nebraska. Actually, she's living in Nebraska, where she was originally a high school teacher. Did language-focused instruction and science instruction, and then kind of kept straddling those worlds and connecting them in meaningful ways. I always kind of take this moment to reflect a little bit on each person making their way through, and it's just so clear that like her primary commitment is to be an advocate for multilingual youth that she serves. Like that is just ever present in her frame and in her contribution, and then teachers right after. Like that's kind of like the orienting logic that she brings to her work. And you know, everyone has a different role in our group. She's like got that boundless joy thing that she brings to moments, and a bit of irreverence too, keep us grounded in a really productive way. And I kind of, she's been part of many of our projects here on the floor. But early on, I knew that she was just going to sink in and do amazing things because she solved one of these crazy problems that we had. We had to produce a batch of reports for a crazy project that we called Educarious. And it was quite, anyway, she saved the day. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, like let's figure this out. Like, and then she joined the group formally, and then we sank in. She's been working on our district level work for the most part. Like that's the primary chunk of her work over the last 5 years or so. And then she'll tell you a very interesting threaded story across 3 levels of that: to organize for equity at the partnership level, to design for equity in partnership with teachers, and then to enact it with students to shift the ground of sense making in more inclusive ways. So very powerful. The district is better off because of Kerri's involvement in the work, connecting parts of that organization that need to be connected. And we're better off because we've learned a bit that you'll hear about today about how to help improve conditions for the kids we care about. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Kerri.
That was really well done. So it is a bizarre thing that it's me standing up here by myself today. So I want to first give a huge shout out and thank you to our wonderful partners, the Research Practice Collaboratory, the NSF, Seattle Public Schools and Mountain School Districts, the Institute for Systems Biology, our PSEP partnership, and the College of Education, and you folks. Wow, I would have never expected to fill a room like this. What a wonderful group of supportive people, and it's been my honor to think with you over the last 5 years. To set some context, our work that Phil talked about in the partnership is a research practice partnership. We're really committed to building on-the-ground systems of support that are research-based, but responding nimbly to the problems of practice. Particularly, we're focused on the next generation science standards and their implementation. And we have a deep concern for equity, as I know many of you in the room also do. And as Phil said, my specific commitment is that for English learners who I've taught and worked with a long time. This partnership has been 5 years in the making. It's and on we go. So our design focus, side credit to Tina Peterman, is that of curriculum adaptation. So a lot of curriculum studies are concerned with fidelity, packaging a curriculum and passing it off to teachers and having them implement it word for word. Our concern was adaptation and helping teachers make sense of what it means to teach kids science. And so our focus was to help teachers develop and use models in the classroom to engage in argument and to construct explanation. So 3-pronged practice-focused approach. And I want to point in particular to explanation. So that's going to come up later. So if you remember one word from this slide, remember that it's about explanation. That's a focus here. We wanted to understand disciplinary core ideas, which is science content, in terms of these models that we developed, and we wanted to support ELLs. So this was a big part of our shared endeavor, and it was really just happenstance and chance that I got to play a role in the building out of that initiative. So all of this sits in a social issue that I care very deeply about. This is me with my students, current and former. I care very deeply about the social issue that ELLs are often considered a problem in US schools. The rhetoric around them is often centered on what they can't do when they're not graduating, when they're not passing a test, when they're not picking up English. I think this is a problem in itself, and I think that these language minoritized youth continue to be underserved and undersupported in many ways across the K-12 system and in society. So this dissertation and this body of work seeks to help people understand this reframing, not language deficient, but language minoritized. They're placed at disadvantage by larger systems. So the research problem that I'm taking on with this work is that we don't know how these large institutions like school districts can be supported to build out more equitable opportunities for language minoritized youth to explain their ideas. So explanation is the key word here, and this is the academic work that we set out to do with teachers in the classroom. I take on many of you know DBIR, but I take on a different approach to research than traditional models. I don't assume that I can study a problem or how people have problems, as many traditional studies in education have done. Design-based implementation research takes on large-scale problems of practice and through iterative design that privileges viewpoints of practice and research equally, helps develop theory and practice, and develop capacity for longer-term sustainable change. So this is a very hopeful model for work in education, especially this time in history. So my study, the DEIR study set in this context with this concern, has three, I call them chapters because they're represented as chapters in my paper, but three prongs really. So a district planning and policy prong, which takes on how districts can support language minoritized youth, how the youth engage, and finally what we can do about it, an instructional design chapter. I bet you know which one's probably my favorite. So I finally will ask what classroom practices and help you do. So I'm going to take a step back and talk a little bit of theory. So you get your Vygotsky for the day.
Daily joke.
Your thinking and your expression of that thinking in words are inextricable from each other. This is a basic tenet of the work that we've done in the College of Education and with our partners. So we say that you haven't actually thought something until you can say it. So this is a great quote I like to express this. The concept is not possible without the word. And thinking in concepts is not possible in the absence of verbal thinking. So you need to talk it out in order to form complete thoughts. So throw together a couple of people who are doing this, and you can think about the value of something that's multi-voiced, where people make sense of something together. And this is a Bakhtinian idea known as heteroglossia, but it's been productively produced in classroom settings at Turk with Anne Roseberry and Beth Warren. So this can be affected in classrooms, but there are often problems bridging one's expression on their own to group expression, and it can be limited by issues of power, partisanship, and the social capital that students have in interaction with each other. As you can imagine, two youth don't enter a conversation on necessarily equal ground. Leslie Heracall has found this in her work with Lindsay Cornelius, and then Kevin Meander has also shown how this happens in interaction. So you can imagine in the classroom, the typical flow of ideas has the teacher at the center. If we're trying to get toward more heteroglossic ideas of learning, this model doesn't work, where the teacher controls the flow of ideas and deposits them, as it were, into students' brains. This is an image of the Kennedy School in Portland if you want to take a road trip to go see it. It's kind of wonderful. What we wanted to do in our partnership is instead to promote opportunities for young people to engage in this sense-making with others. Sense-making is so valuable for conceptual development that there has to be a place for it in classrooms, for young people to make sense of their ideas. So we set about with these basic fundamental tenets of equity in mind, that we need to privilege the opportunities for young people to make sense and give them time to make sense, time and space to talk through their ideas, to counter views of them as deficient, and to engage the wonderful treasures, their funds of knowledge that they bring to the classroom. So dialogic learning, helping young people talk with each other, is a way to do this. Supports equitable conceptual and language development. And if you implement that dialogue in classrooms, maybe it will promote more equitable opportunities to make sense, and we can support teachers to do this. So that is the conceptual link to our local work. At the district, we found that implementing this was not straightforward and simple. We didn't necessarily always agree what we meant by equity. I think that different ideologies of language and planning and policy were at play. Although in these moments where it was apparent we didn't understand each other, achieving shared understanding helped us move forward in productive ways. In other words, we were able to listen to and respond to each other. And tools supported our effort. And one of these tools, I have with me today if you'd like a copy, is something we call the Talk Activities Flowchart, and credit to Abby Reinhardt and Hank Clark for helping design this and get it together. But it's essentially a tool to help teachers choose, manage, and promote dialogic talk activities with their youth. So that is a summary of what I found at the district level, 30 pages in 5 minutes. I'm going to turn now to how the young people engaged. So how did these language minoritized youth engage with STEM with each other? I looked at 6 cases in an interaction analysis sort of format. I know I did a few other things, sorry. Yeah, the folks don't mind sharing. You can also see it online at stemteachingtools.org, where there are 50. So we wanted to know how language minoritized youth were doing when they sat down to talk with their peers. So I asked, how are they positioned by their peers in talk moves, and how did they respond to this positioning? So I'll just show you briefly the case of Rocky and Fiona. Rocky is a first-year newcomer student from Argentina who speaks Spanish, and Fiona is a white English-speaking student. And I wanted to know how their activity together afforded and constrained these positions relative to science. So imagine them sitting at a desktop computer, which is not ideal for 6th graders to have 2 of them sharing one device, but they are, and they're writing a text together. And Rocky says, I need to erase it. How do you erase it? And I says, I kind of want to get a good grade on this. Rocky says, I kind of too. Fiona says, no, you don't. Rocky says, yeah, I do, but I don't know how to take this out. Well, if you give me the mouse, and she reaches over and takes the mouse, and Rocky turns his body away to another student's computer. So this sounds like 6th grade, right? I don't want to say that this is bad instruction or bad behavior. This is 6th grade. But what's happening here on a micro-interactional level is important. Fiona is saying, no, you don't want to get a good grade. Like, no, you don't belong in this academic sphere, essentially. And Rocky is saying, yeah, I do, but I don't know how to take this out. So Fiona is kind of moving to position him out of the writing activity, and he's trying to nudge his way back in. So there are these small interactions at play in this setting. And I can give you the paper if you'd like to read more analysis and transcript. I want to take a minute to just say that in one instance, this might not add up to very much, but studies in interaction analysis have shown that over time, interactions like this can lead to positioning students outside scientific content and with problematic identities related to school. And that's not what we want to happen to Rock. He's doing great now. So across the 6 episodes, to quickly answer the research question, how are these language minoritized youth positioned by their peers and how did they respond? Well, they're often positioned negatively related to science content or related to the academic sphere of the classroom. But they responded to this positioning with great resilience and, hopeful for teachers, they leveraged classroom structures to do so. So they used teacher instruction or their notebook or their worksheet or what we were supposed to do by the teacher as a way to nimbly navigate their way back into science-focused interaction. So not entirely unhelpful chapter for teachers. It seems that there are great provisions to be made for these young people. So to flip now to my favorite chapter, what instructional practices might support language minoritized youth? This is essentially a chapter about what we can do to support young people like Rocky. So I asked what designs might foster explanation and sense-making among these youth and how these youth respond. The data corpus for the study came from a partnership of 70 teachers, but of those 75 were selected for a deep dive study where I visited their classroom and engaged in co-teaching and collaborative work around the problems of practice that we decided to pursue. We worked in 5 design environments, which means classrooms, and in all, we video recorded and audio recorded 8 pairs of students. ELL students, or students classified as ELL, were present in each of these pairs, and these were recorded and transcribed. But in all of them, they shared one commonality. We looked at one participation structure that we called idea coaching. So idea coaching was born out of a moment in a classroom when a teacher and I said, the students aren't talking to each other. They're playing idea hot potato. Idea hot potato is where you say your idea and then the next person gets the turn of talk and they say their idea, and then the next person gets the turn of talk and they say their idea, and then you're done. And this is common in a middle school classroom and maybe even in graduate school classroom. Because working ideas is not necessarily comfortable. So we decided to ask the young people to take on a role as a coach. We emphasize that during a game, the coach stands to the side while the players' activity is highlighted. And we asked that the coach not insert their ideas or give extra information, but just that the coach help the explainer have what we call the complete thought. We wanted these young people to have an opportunity to make sense together. So we call this idea coaching. With all of the video data and all of the transcripts, it added up to like an Excel spreadsheet with 17 tabs across the bottom. And a set of about 9 conjecture maps in which I was able to analyze socio-material practices and arrangements of youth in order to compare across settings when idea coaching seemed to work better and seemed to work not as well. I also conducted conversation analysis on all of the transcripts. So in this column, these are the turns of talk. The coach had codes applied and the explainer had separate codes applied in a method of adjacency pair analysis. So if I were to say hello to you, you will only have a few ways that you're allowed to respond. This is the idea that what I say constrains the way that you're able to respond. So the coach, by speaking to the explainer, constrains certain kinds of responses. So I coded for whether the coach added information, asked a question, responded, hesitated, or evaluated or phrased. And I analyzed whether the explainer made a claim, added an idea, or repeated an idea. We focused on adding an idea because that's what we do in science. That was the prime objective of getting young people to explain. So I just want to take a second, sorry, and highlight this word respond. I just want to talk a little bit about what it means. So if I say, well, I think the sand is from the beach. You can say a lot of things as a coach. You might say, can you say more about the sand on the beach? And in saying sand on the beach, you've shown me that you've heard me. We've gained an intersubjectivity. You could even do it this way, not ask a question, but just give a statement and say, the beach? Okay. In this way, you've demonstrated that you've heard me, right? So it helps you hear and rehear your thinking to have a coach be responsive to you. This is an example of not responsive coaching. So a student might say, oh, that sounds good, which is a nice thing to say. It's a positive affirmation. It's sort of an evaluation. Or that's not what we learned in class, or I think that's it then. These all function in the dialogue to constrain the possible responses. So I'm now going to tell you, or show you, which kinds of coach moves afforded the opportunity for explainers to add ideas. So in this diagram, the explainer responses are, the bar represents whether they added an idea. And new idea is coded separately because I analyzed student work from the class period of idea coaching and the class period before for new ideas that the student had not mentioned until idea coaching. So if the coach asked a question, any question, 61% of the time the explainer gave an idea in their response. So either repeating an idea they said before or adding a new idea. If you split that out into responsive and unresponsive questions, responsive questions were about the same and unresponsive questions were much lower. So questions like, oh, so why? Is a question and a good question, but not a responsive question. So that difference is keeping some of the wording or the language or the idea of your response present in my coaching. But if you look at simply responsive coaching tactics, you see the number go up. 74% of the time that a coach was responsive in their talk, the explainer added an idea. I know someone in here is going to ask me about p-values.
Can I ask a
Of course, yes.
So what's the difference between asking a responsive question and the responsive category?
Sure, so responsive questions and responsive statements are included
Okay, statements are
together
included too.
here.
Gotcha.
So adding statements into this category, you see the uptick from here to here for responsive questions. But this would be including responsive statements such as
The beach.
the beach, okay?
Mhm.
Which is such a simple talk move, you wouldn't think it would. Do you want to see an example? Of course you want to see an example. So here is the initial instantiation of idea coaching. Barry is on the left. Barry has been assigned to coach Rocky. Rocky's on the right. We talked about Rocky a little bit before. And their task is to explain what's going on in this little vial of sand that they have in front of them.
Explain a bit more about the sand that eats your feet. Yeah, it's sometimes it's warm. Sometimes it's cold.
Sorry, I saw that I could see it, and then there's something wrong here.
We could all look the other way.
Here we go.
I've never watched. You can't even see them. They're too tiny. They're like mushy. So, what do you mean? I'm not sure I understood what you said. Could you tell me more? About what? I said that these rocks are too tiny, so sometimes they're called rocks. And I see this ones in the beach when I go with my mom and dad. So I see them and I think they're from the beach. And, yeah, but how do you think the sand got here? To the beach?
I just want to highlight that at this moment in the video, the two youth have squared their shoulders to each other, and they are now sharing an interaction. So we have some intersubjectivity bubbling here.
How do you think the sand got to the beach? It tastes like salt water. I'm asking, what do you think the sand got to the beach? How do you think the sand got to the beach? I think what is that the ocean is so tight or too hard that the rocks look like bones or something, and they crush and they make little pieces, and the ocean goes like with the waves, they go and they go and they go until they get to a place together, they stop and they gather, they stay there, and that's it. I think like the rocks come and come, the rocks are like pushing, they're not pushing like they crush and then they make pieces with the water, they make little pieces and they make like this. So by the time you shell, you crash, everything rocks, and you make stuff.
Okay, give it up for these two. I just love them so much. So how does Barry do this? Barry is not all the time in perfect interaction with his partner, right? Barry kind of tunes in and tunes out. But Barry does some very savvy things, and it seems the idea coaching role allows Barry the opportunity to try these. So Barry affirms Rocky and says, okay. He responds to the idea of the sand that eats your feet, which is puzzling, but he's very generous. He asks a question, he repeats the question, he presses, okay, but how does the sand, how? Clarifies the question again, He dares Rocky to eat the sand. You better look it. He repeats the question again. How does the sand get there? He requests a causal explanation. He presses Rocky for cause. All of this out of the metaphor of coaching. So something about asking youth to coach each other allows them to open up all of these sense-making moves. Oh, and then Jerry tastes the sand at the end, of course. In a second instantiation of idea coaching across town, Kuma, who is an Oromo-speaking student, coaches Evie, who's a native English speaker, to explain her diagram. So if you're a science teacher, you know that this is a bottle, and this is, of course, a balloon at the top. And that if you heat the bottle, the balloon inflates, and if you cool the bottle, the balloon deflates. Kuma goes about coaching Evie in a different way. Kuma actually leverages the diagram in great detail and asks wonderful questions. Why are some of your arrows, and in this one before, why are some of them are long and some of them are short? But he's able to say some of them, and in this one, and some of your arrows, he's able to use those words as deictic references to the paper without having to think all of those English words to substitute into the question itself. He has to get, okay, why this one's distance like farther than this one? He can ask a complicated question about a really important piece of the science model without having to dig for words like diagram or representation. And yeah, but what about this? Evie also did a wonderful job and added a lot of ideas as a result. So what does this all mean? In a classroom where you want youth to make sense together, I think that this is evidence that responsive listening can alter what Hooray Davies called the storyline of the classroom. From the storyline of teacher gives information to students, to deposited directly into students' brains, from that storyline to a storyline in which youth are positioned as capable, competent knowers in their interaction with their peers. So what are my recommendations for doing this in a design-based study? You give principled design moves. So I think that key to doing idea coaching well in these classrooms was an emphasis on complete ideas, not correct ideas. That we should scaffold youth to do this kind of coaching and this kind of explanation. We shouldn't expect young people to know how to make sense together, but rather we need to provide ways to support them. And I have more copies of this if you want to try it out. This was designed specifically for number 2, to scaffold youth. An emphasis on your own words, so say it the way that works best for you, and a de-emphasis on saying it correctly or talking with science vocabulary seem to support youth to add more ideas and to help support their explainers better, and to assume that youth can do this. So how can large institutions be supported to build out these equitable opportunities? Well, in partnership and from these tiny interactions up. I also think that there is an incredible case to be made for the importance of real listening that's responsive and intersubjective and present. And this conclusion of listening held across all 3 chapters and all 3 settings in certain ways. Even with grown-ups, listening was very important. And so what? This is the slide where I get to conjecture about the importance of this work in historical context. We've long known the link between talking to explain and the development of concepts. My advisor did this work in the 90s. But we haven't talked about the link of being heard and feeling heard in the positions that affords you, and the importance of listening to others in relation to conceptual development in science and talking to explain your ideas. And we don't know much about what being heard might mean in contribution to more just learning environments. But I think this is a field of study I would like to pursue in the future. So with that, I would like to thank everybody. Slides are so small when it's time to write a thank you page, but here we are.
especially Nancy and Hank and Abby and Lynn, the folks here at the Life Center who have held me up for 5 years. And I think it's time to open it for questions.
Yes.
I have a middle schooler who's not an English language learner, who grew up in a multicultural bilingual household, who hates to work with English language learners. I asked her, she said, oh, there's a new girl in my class from such and such a place. I said, oh, why don't we have her over? She goes, I hate to talk to those students. And I'm like, what students? Those students who don't speak English well. I hate to talk to them. And I'm like, I was shocked. And what I wondered is how this kind of providing students with tools to help each other express themselves, how that might impact attitudes of kids like my daughter, who just think, oh gosh, I'm partnered with, you know, Meilon, who's been here from China for 6 months, and I don't want to deal with her. But with this, it's like you're giving her a role of something she has to listen to and do, not just to like, Meilon's talking, yuck, you know.
Yeah, can I just say one thing in response to that? Is your daughter is just breathing the air, and the air in schools is one that minoritizes students based on where they're from, how they, the food that they might eat at home and how it smells. And so talk moves are one tiny micro interaction piece, right? But there is an entire, it's in the air. There's an entire universe of systems that give your daughter this message. And so there is so much work to do. You all are doing it. But yeah.
I want to pursue that, but I think we could pursue that in a smaller, I want to pursue that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Such a lovely question.
I was just wondering if you fix the micro interactions or support them to give the, you know, to give the non-language minority student ways of interacting where they have something to do besides just parse or just tune out.
Sure, and I think it helps.
Give them a role.
It can help you, those micro interactions can serve to help people recognize each other's humanity across differences, right? That's what we want really, is to see everyone as human, but being able to support those micro interactions, I think, can go a long way.
And the possible contributions from having a humane stance in interaction. Like, because there's like, I think a lot of your cases in the dissertation actually open up like really meaningful conversations where more complete, full ideas are being expressed that like do shift like how then people would attend to like how do you make sense of this phenomenon. Like I think there is that kind of renorming of the contribution.
So I really like positioning theory for this work because it helps you understand, break down the ways that people are dehumanized in some ways, and how they can be put in positions of authority, competence. Thanks you.
Other comments or reactions from the room? This is your chance.
Wait time, Phil. Wait time. When will they? Shelley and Priya.
I have a question. You laid out really nicely what the coach was able to do in that session, and I wondered if you could say a little bit more about what the explainer was able to do and the difference between my opinion.
Yeah, and you know, it's not exactly how I would have wanted it to go, because Rocky starts out by saying, oh, I know this is sand because it's from the beach when I go with my mom and my dad, which is perfect. That's what we want to see. We want kids to connect their experiences across spaces and to come into knowing with their whole histories intact. That's what we want. But through coaching, Barry actually says, no. How did it get there? And presses not for the experience, but for the science cause. And so there is this moment of little bit of marginalization of Rocky's experience. So still, I mean, I think this is a wonderful interaction, but these are things that we need to keep working on. Rocky responds the best once Barry has dared him, and they've come into this like, okay, now I know who you are. Now let's talk science kind of thing. Once they've tasted the sand and caused trouble in the back row, like there's this intersubjective, like, okay, now we know each other. You've heard me, and I will explain for you. It's like a bomb, and it goes in the waves and the waves, and he recruits his whole body. The only vocab word that he uses is weather. They reach a place where they weather, where they stop and do weather, but the rest are everyday first 100 English words. And so he's able to use all of himself in order to make sense in this interaction. In response to Barry's like intersubjective, here we are, I hear you positioning. Yeah?
This is amazing. I especially seeing the video too this time. I know we went through this the other day, and that really made me think of, so when you were looking through the videos and at the interactions, how is like the activity driving how the students were taking up these talk moves? Because I'm thinking like in that video, they weren't looking at each other. And so Barry kind of had this like, how do you know, and then once they got engaged with the thing, the artifacts, like that kind of changes. So I was just wondering how you saw that.
Are you asking how I decided which videos to use? Is it a question of how do you know when they're being intersubjective?
More of just like how did the actual like artifacts and the tools like kind of drive or not the interactions?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm just trying to think across the corpus. In 4 of the classrooms, students use the model of the bottle in a drawing to refer to, and that drove those 4 of 8 dyadic interactions. And the drawn model, actually with Min, who was new to the US from China, Min's drawing actually allowed her to say to me, yeah, I know kinetic molecular theory. We've done this before and I'm good and I don't need your help, without words. So she was able to point to the diagram and be like, particles. Like she knew that there were particles and they're moving around the balloon and they're there and there are more of them or they're moving faster when it's hot and they don't change in number. Like she knew those things and she was able to show that in her drawing. I can't say that idea coaching. There are a lot of things that happened when it was her turn to do idea coaching, just because she was so reserved with her English talk. And also the classroom, her classroom was not one where regular sense making often occurred in dyads and student dyads. So it was such a new practice for her, 1, and 2, she just was so sweet and wanted to say it right. I think that she didn't explain like Rocky in this huge multimodal gestural explanation, but she knew it, and the image showed me that.
Sorry, I've got a follow-up question to that. It appeared that Barry, the idea coach, was working with a tool, a script
Yes.
of some ideas,
Yes.
questions you could ask,
Yes.
or some language examples.
Yeah.
So my question is about if we are promoting the participation of multilingual or English learner students in the interaction in an equal way or a balanced way. Rocky didn't have a similar tool. So were there, in idea coaching or in some of the other strategies for participation, what sort of tools could be, leveraged, or did you see, I guess, I wonder about the balance. I wonder about the balance of expression and explanation. Rocky did a wonderful job. It took him a long time to get there. And so I see how the coaching encouraged that, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on providing that sort of language scaffolding for both.
Yeah, I think one, it's really important that Rocky had all the time he needed to get there, get comfortable, try out the explanatory narrative tactic and see if that works. And I think the time that he was given was really important. I haven't, that's such a great, have you tried question. Anybody want to try that? Like, let me know how it goes. Like, giving, the thing is, I worry a lot about sentence stems and other, say it like this, diagrams constraining these beautiful explanations that come directly from them with the tools that they have and whatever they feel is appropriate. Like Rocky is, like he's got the loop in his hand. I learned what that was working in the science center. He's got his loop and he's got his vial of sand, but he's like, they're kind of important to him. Like they're helping him think, I think. But I think I would hesitate to give Rocky a piece of paper and say it this day.
Maybe not that day. Maybe that's what happens.
Yeah.
Because you made reference to the omnipresent, NGSS. So
Yeah.
and if we have a goal of academic language production, at what point do we move from they have an artifact in the gut structure to?
I did not seed her with this question, but I would like to take this moment. Yeah. So I want to talk about this diagram again in relationship to academic language. We want kids to develop academic language. That seems to be an unquestioned fact of public schooling. Academic language is not this diagram, in this diagram. If you think it through and if you have the context in here and here, like if you know the stuff, it's very easy to stick the words to it. And that's what we're trying to get teachers to see by letting kids, because Rocky, it's going to be so easy to attach erosion to Rocky because he knows what erosion is. He showed you with his language. So to help teachers understand that Rocky has the music, but maybe not the word yet, is very powerful. Yeah, thanks for that question.
Last question. To you.
Yeah. So in conjunction with that, I'm very curious if because you slated a particular coaching position for one student and are receiving coaching for another student, did you see any in the data, any form of an intersubjectivity that went back the other way with the coaching feedback looped into itself, where they were both responding to one another?
Actually, it may not have happened in these 5-minute interactions, but teachers reported afterward that kids loved idea coaching. They wanted to do it again, and that kids were able to say, "Teacher, are you coaching me right now?" And that they were and that these young people understood listening, hearing, and intersubjectivity as important to the work of learning.
That's great. What's also interesting is that this was data from last year, and like some of the same classrooms have been doing idea coaching throughout the entire academic year this year. And we have video from some of the same places. We'll actually see a little bit more of like what's it look like for kind of a group of students to take up this cultural frame of making sense of ideas and coaching ideas. And so it's a little bit less beyond the sentence stem starter moment, but like into a little bit more of a learning community sense making culture.
Thank you. That was so fun. What wonderful questions. What wonderful questions.
Do a 2-minute transition, and we'll go to close committee meeting in here.
There will be lunch.
Lunch announcement. There will be lunch.